You're listening to episode number 8 of The Road to 7 with Sheila Cummins.
Welcome to the Road to 7 podcast, guiding and supporting entrepreneurs along their road to 7 figures and beyond. Here's your host, Sheila Cummins.
Forbes magazine calls Kelsey Ramsden the $50 million woman. They describe her as a master builder of ideas, companies, and sky's the limit futures. Twice named Canada's #1 female entrepreneur, she has founded and scaled business in industries as diverse as construction and kids' toys. A Branson Center mentor, cancer survivor, and mother of 3, Kelsey balances book and street smarts with her belief that imagination is greater than knowledge. As she continues to run 2 businesses, Kelsey hosts the Future Proofing podcast, speaks globally, and runs a select group called The Foundry, where she connects an intimate community of exceptionally ambitious entrepreneurs through experiences worldwide while supporting them as their wingman. Her book, The Success Hangover, is now available, and it has the bestseller critics abuzz. Join me today as I interview Kelsey and we talk about what happens after you've hit it. What's it? It's there. There. That place where you have as your master goal or the big goal and you hit it, you've hit the success. We talk about what happens after. Kelsey's going to introduce you to the idea of the success hangover and what we can do to work through it. Have a listen. Kelsey, thank you so much for joining us today. It's such a pleasure to chat with you.
Oh, it's fab. It's fab to chat with you again. We've known each other for a bit of time.
We have. We've shared the stage a couple times.
Yeah.
We've played in a similar circle for quite a few years. So it's really exciting. I'm really excited about your book launch, and I'd like to get there and talk about the Success Hangover book soon. But first, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your journey. You know, you've had an incredible entrepreneurial journey. It's had a couple different facets to it. I know it started in a construction company. Tell us more. Tell us a little bit about you and where have you been?
Sure. So I think for me, it starts with this question about whether or not entrepreneurs are born or they become. I think they're both, but I was the type that was born this way. So for the people who are listening who became, I applaud you greatly because I think it's more challenging for you than it is for us who had no other option than to be who we are. So I was always starting businesses, creating things, having ideas, making things come to life. Eventually I started charging for that for a long time. Of course, you know, when you're young, you don't necessarily understand what that's all about. But eventually, you know, I grew up in a construction family, so I had a lot of experience working construction. I always worked construction in the summers, coffee shops in the winters, very kind of traditional type of British Columbia growing up, although not a lot of girls were on construction sites. But and then I went and did some schooling. Eventually, I did my MBA out here at Western in London, where I now live. And after that, decided to start my own construction company because it was really the only thing I knew how to do. And it turned out every time I went to work for someone else, I either got fired or quit. So I didn't have a lot of options. I mean, I had all the options, but I can remember the day I quit from my job, my job job as a consultant. I had my MBA, I had all this stuff, signing bonus and whatever. And I walked in and I looked at my boss and I was like, if I had $100 to put on her or me, who would I put it on? And so I quit and I called my now husband, who wasn't at the time. And I was like, Andrew, I quit my job today. He was like, all right, so what's the plan? I'm like, the plan is you do not quit yours. That is the plan. And I'm going to figure some stuff out right about now. But for now, we're working on paying the rent. So that's how my business, my first major material business started was, this kind of moment of what am I really doing?
But I'd love to just sort of chat about that because you shifted from being a doer, being someone who worked in construction, someone who knew the manual side of it, someone
right.
who, was given a contract and then made it happen, to being a business owner where you're out there doing biz dev, you're having to go and build relationships, you're having to manage a team. I know you had the MBA. What was the hardest part of that shift from being the doer to being the owner?
Cool. So I'm going to offend, a quarter of your audience right about now and say that I had the MBA, but it was just like a fancy, expensive piece of paper. In all honesty, I always say, like, having a hammer doesn't make you a carpenter. Mm-hmm. Having a degree doesn't make you whatever that is. It's about how you practice that. So I mistakenly thought that having a degree meant I was a business person. So, it was like I went out and all of a sudden I was like, oh yes, they were talking about cash flow. That matters. Oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I making payroll? Like all that stuff. So going from creating in the field, the bonus is I knew what I was talking about. So right. I had actually physically torn forms off of, I started out as a laborer. So I was like the kid that they were like, let's see if the girl can live. Mm-hmm. Let's see if she'll do that. So I knew what I was selling and doing. In one respect, with construction, the lowest price wins. So all I had to do was outwork anybody, outsmart anybody. Nobody needed to like me, which was great at the start because I just got to outwit them. And then when you talk about running teams, that was my real first foray. It wasn't about how to get the work, because that was just being crafty. Mm-hmm. It was about how to get the people to work for you.
Yes. Which
was a whole nother game. And at the beginning, again, I'm gonna sound like such a jerk, but I can't help but tell the truth. So
I would expect nothing less from you.
At the beginning, I was a real jerk, I was a real, I'd seen it done on TV, man's world, grind them, work them hard, kind of just throw everything at it kind of person. And so, I was working, guys, 12, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, no days off. Mm-hmm. And if they wanted days off, I was like, family, what are you talking about? We are here to build a road. And so eventually I realized I was just burning everyone out, and in fairness, there's a reason that I'm the boss, is because those people have a different priority set. Not that their family isn't first or my family isn't first, but the way that they orchestrate their life is very different than how I orchestrate mine as a business owner.
Yes.
And I came home one day. This is like the pivotal moment, the aha moment where you're like, what the hell was I thinking all these years? And I came home and I was frustrated and whatever. And I basically have two emotions, rage and joy. I operate in one of those two places, basically at all time. Mm-hmm. And I was in rage, and my husband said, what's the problem? And I told him, why aren't these people working as hard as I'm working? Why is everyone incompetent? Why do I have to do everything? One of those kind of very deep and rich pity parties.
Yes.
And he said to me, Kelsey, you have notoriously high expectations. Mm. And you have to remember that those expectations that you put on yourself, number one, don't apply to everyone else. They have notoriously high expectations of what they're expecting for what they want. Mm-hmm. Just so happens
different.
Very rarely is that exactly what you want. It turns out we're all individual human beings. And in that moment, there was three things that slapped me in the face. One was notorious. Notorious is everyone knows it. And it's a well-known, potentially negative fact. Notoriety and notorious are kind of two ends of that spectrum. And I was like, that's interesting. So there's a perception of me that's known by everyone, apparently, but me, that I am a really hard boss.
Right. So your personal brand was on display there at that moment.
Fact. So notorious, high expectations I'm fine with. I'll stand behind that all day until I'm dead. Totally happy to do that. Notorious, maybe less so. The second was this idea that I had never built alignment between my business and the people who work there. Mm. I never even considered that when I was hiring people. It's ridiculous to think back on that. Now I'm like, oh my God, 101 woman, what the hell? But I hired people basically based off of a piece of paper, and honestly, did I think that they were going to do the job? That was about it. That was about the depth of the alignment I was looking
for. So the depth was the skill. And let me I just want to pop in with one other question before you go to your third point.
Yes.
When you were hiring and,
yes.
and you were starting out in this business, did you hire laborers, or was there a top end team that was being hired?
All of it. It was all happening fast and all kind of at once. I was hiring accountants. I was hiring like admin staff. I was hiring laborers, equipment operators, right? The whole show.
And hired 100% for skill.
Pretty well, unless you were in my office and I had to see you in the day.
Right.
And again, I'm outing myself. At the beginning, I didn't want to talk to any people.
Sure.
I wanted to be locked in my room with my numbers, with my figuring it out, with my, I found people talking out there in the room. Like if you were chatting, what your productivity ratio was plummeting. What was going on? I'm paying you to deliver results. What are we chatting? What are you talking about? Like that's insane when I say it now. But at the time, I was so focused only on making the most money I could, period, flat out, to hell with everything else. Honestly, that's how I felt at the beginning because I was in survival, fear, all those things at the beginning, which is like, we got to live, folks.
Yeah, this is my food bill here. Were you building it thinking it was a 7-figure company? Was that always in your sight?
I had no plans.
Yeah.
I was building it because I would never work for anyone else. Mm-hmm. It was something I knew how to do and do really well.
Yes.
And I loved doing it. I didn't have I want to be this big of a business or a number or anything. Honestly, in my case, I think if I had set a number, I would have set it too low.
Right.
I think the reason I got to be as big as I did, as fast as I did, and kind of still keep doing that is because my goal is not the finish line. I think what you find when you're in this game long enough is there actually is no finish line. Like, psst, sorry, everyone.
Yeah, well, there keeps being a left turn or a right turn.
Totally,
you're like, right? And it's like, actually, let's just go left first.
Totally. And I think that, not because of my own, good sense, but just out of luck. I never set myself a finish line. Mm-hmm. I set myself what would I like to build in the next 6 months to a year? And then from there I went, okay, now what can I build? Okay, now what can I build? So I never had this I think there's a couple of good things about that. Number one is you're always in this sense of what am I doing right now? Mm-hmm. I'm not only a $300,000 business when I want to be a $10 million business.
Right.
I'm a $300,000 business. There's a whole context to that I think is useful because we spend a lot of time comparing ourselves to what everybody else does and it's noise and it takes up too much space. So that was one thing. And the other thing was it allowed me to look at a lot of opportunities I would have otherwise not seen because I was looking at what do I have today that can serve me tomorrow? Not so this idea of pivoting often, not even pivoting, but looking at your footing often and saying, does this serve me? Is this what I want to do?
Right.
Right before we hit the air, we were talking about I don't do clients anymore.
Yes.
But if I had said...
Just to clarify, you don't do private coaching anymore.
Yes, sir. This
is not that kind of show, but I hear what you're saying. So you're not doing one-on-one coaching anymore, and that's one of those pivot points, right, that you're talking about.
Because I didn't say, I want to be this thing. I said, I want to do what I'm doing because I enjoy it. And I think that's another thing that helped me, like I say, grow and help me have those moments. Like when my husband said, the notoriously high expectations and all these things is like, okay, great. My heart has not crafted the big dream. My heart has crafted this idea of what's the right thing to do given the information I have and the access that I have and the resources that I have. And oh my God, it's the Christmas party. Right. And there's 80 people here and all those presents are provided by all of us, not me, but those people working with me to create a business and they don't want to come to work with me. Mm-hmm. Ooh, that felt not good. And it's my fault because I hired lots of the wrong people,
right,
worse, all this kind of thing. So, but that was a real gift, right? I think there's, again, there's two ways to see those things. It's like either that happened to me or it happened for me. And I think it happened for me in the kind of way that's so painful you can't help but change.
So tell me what the tipping point was for you. You were leading as a notoriously high expectations with a staff who were hired based on skill, not necessarily in alignment with your core values or your purpose.
Yep.
You were working them to the bone. There was a disconnect. So what was that tipping point where you made a shift, and what did that shift enable you to do?
Oh my gosh. So the tipping point was I was to hire someone to work in the office with me next. It was like all happening at the same time, which was part of why I was having this conversation with my husband. And I said, I really want to find a person who's this. And he said, okay, how about as opposed to just talking about responsibilities, you talk about expectations and you invite them to do the same thing. So
the expectations of working for you.
Absolutely. So let's just lay all our good and bad out on the table and be really honest about it. And so that next interview, I went in and I said my piece, here's the thing. I don't like chatter. I don't like this. I don't like that. I will throw you a party. Every 3 months, we're going to have the most amazing party. But at the office, here's that. And if you send me an email that's longer than 3 paragraphs, I guarantee it will never be read. All these kind of things. These are all of, here's all my dirty spots. What are yours? And I opened that by saying, look, I can hire you. You're qualified. You're here. But this is just equally as much about you as it is about me. And I don't want to hire anyone who actually doesn't want to be here.
Right.
And hearing what mattered to someone else, why they bothered to apply, it gave me an opportunity to develop that person in a way that mattered to them, to communicate in a way that they could hear me. And it was almost instantaneous. I had actually a ton of great people in my business. I just didn't know them.
Right.
I had no idea what they liked, what they valued, who they were. Why the hell did you even come to work with me? Some of them actually liked the notorious nature. Some of them were like, look, I'm no BS. Just tell me what to do. I'll do it. But as soon as 4:00 hits, I'm out. I'm with my kids. I'm the soccer coach. I'm the whatever. So all those things, it was really a little bit like growing up and getting off of the balance sheet and getting into the humanity of my business. Because we are just a bunch of humans.
Yes.
Showing up to do something. And unless I was showing up as a human too, why would they bother?
And so what was the impact of making that shift to humanity on your balance sheet?
Well, in the very short term, honestly, it didn't really have a big impact.
Right.
So in the first year, not really, but what it did was it allowed me those occasions when the shit hits the fan. I'm sorry if we can't swear on this show, but
it's all good.
But that I could call on people in a way and they were showing up. So it didn't hit the balance sheet per se in the first year, but it hit the management sheet, so to speak. Right? We all felt a little bit more supported. And by that, in the second year, though, what that was doing was it was getting me better people applying, because most of my best, hires came from referrals. Oh, you should work here. Oh, you should,
Right.
And it also gave people the feeling like they had permission to come to me and say, I think we could do this better. I think we can save money this way. I think we could, whereas before they were just like, that woman is either going to say, I already thought of that, or, show me how it does what I really had this persona of just being pretty hardcore, which I still am, but I have this whole other side of me that no one ever got to see. So it was all those things that trickled up kind of from the field and the floor, and we made, and disseminating responsibility too. People started taking ownership because they knew that if they made a recommendation, I might do it. So that enlivened people, you know?
Sure. Well, I guess it made them feel like they were part of this.
Sure.
They weren't just one of the minions out there.
Exactly.
They actually were a part of the growth.
Exactly.
So when you make that shift, I mean, that's a big shift. There's a real vulnerability and trust that has to come for you to be able to allow someone else to have that say, or make it safe for them to share their idea, or, you know, maybe call you on something that isn't going well.
Right.
What was was there any internal battle that you had to sort of come to peace with? How were you able to step in and be vulnerable so that you could ask for help or ask for feedback or be open to receiving it?
You know what? I made a kind of decision around that same point in time that because of my notoriously high expectations, and because I have them on myself, usually it's in the form of negative, like, you know, it just beat the living bejeebies out of myself on a constant basis. Mm-hmm. Then I figured, well, if I'm going to do that all the time, I might as well make it purposeful. Right. So I decided that I would be world class. So what that meant was my expectation. That doesn't mean I'm not going to falter or make mistakes or, you know, whatever, but that my intention would be to be world class. So what that translated to was going from this responsibilities on a CV when I'm hiring people and I'm looking at myself, to expectations. They're very different things. And that I would communicate clearly those expectations, and the same that they would for me. So they expect me to do what? Communicate clearly, communicate this way, provide them opportunities to grow, et cetera, et cetera. And that moment for me around, you know, I would go into my office and let's just say I drift into Instagram. Mm-hmm. Potentially, like, you know, I would never do that, but let's just say it happened. And I'm the CEO of a business. Let's just say I hired someone to be me, and I walked in and I am paying them what I expect to make, and they were just chilling on Instagram. What does that meet my expectations? No, not at all. Zeros. So how can I do that? How can I myself behave that way? So I started seeing everything in the eyes of world-class expectations. Right. And giving people their permission to see that for themselves. Like, if you're my admin assistant, you are a world-class admin assistant. Like, if you're the best damn admin assistant in the business, what does your day look like? And that totally changed what people believed they could do. It took them out of this hierarchy of like, oh, I'm just the admin assistant, or whatever their story, all our negative self-talk was. It was like, you are the world-class admin assistant. Show up. Show me how you show up. What is that? What are your expectations of someone who's like that? And for all the listeners, there's a book I read that was, you know how it's funny how books show up at the same time as you, or whatever, you get the message. Always. Stuff. And it's called The Art of Possibility. And I should know who wrote it, but I'm terrible at authors. But it's a yellow cover. Yep. And we'll go find it. It's two teachers who basically did the same thing. They said, okay, classroom, everybody gets an A, so now earn it. Wow. Live up to your own expectation. You think you're an A person, just show up at your own expectation level. And I can tell you that uniformly, it didn't matter if you were a guy in the field, a guy, whatever the case, that you are world class, show up that way mentality was what allowed the vulnerability to come. Because look, if I'm going to be world class, you better tell me everything I'm doing wrong. Mm-hmm. Could be doing better, could see a different way. There is no boss in world class. World class is like constantly seeking negative feedback. I don't care about how good I am. I already know I'm great. Tell me what I could do better. Right. And that is like the biggest permission slip you can give yourself, is this idea that it's not about being, I think a lot of us take it like I'm not good enough if someone highlights something I could do better, as opposed to saying I'm already great. Amazing. I did my best given, I'm amazing. Given all, my inputs, my education, my access, my whatever, wherever I'm at. Look, we don't tell our kids, oh, nice try riding your bike. You know, we watch them evolve into becoming a better bike rider.
Right.
But somehow ourselves, on the first try of something or the third try, we expect ourselves to be the best. No. Recognize where you're at. Decide you're going to be world class given what you have and where you're at. And make those incremental steps to move forward. And honestly, if I could like say one of three things that I will say during this conversation is go for the hard stuff. That's where all the good things are. The hard feedback, the like, you know, when it hurts you and you have to self-reflect and you have to whatever. And that other person could be wrong.
Yes.
But isn't that a great opportunity for you to shore up the beliefs that you know are true?
So what sort of mentoring have you had, or how were you able to go through that process yourself?
You know, look, I have like a long history of failure and being the worst at a lot of things. So I think
I
being...
find that hard to believe.
I know it is, isn't it? But it's factual. So I was a terrible student, right? I was like the one where all my friends were getting A's and I was like the kid who got a D and had to repeat and whatever. I was the one who everybody applied for jobs at Earl's and I was the only girl who didn't get one. You know, like I was just like the consistent, like you're fine and you're friends with all the people who are succeeding, but you're just like maybe the funny one. And so my kind of paradigm was around this like kind of maybe not great, blah, 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 blah. But yet I just kept succeeding. So how does this keep happening? Like, this is curious to me. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question directly, like I realized that a lot of people have your back. A lot of people had my back. When I felt alone in my like mediocrity and whatever, I realized all these straight A people, all these whatever, they're friends with me for a reason. These teachers help me for a reason. I make the sports team and become the captain for a reason. Maybe I don't jump the hoops that society has us jump. Maybe it turns out there's something different about me that's actually my value is something different. And I realized that my value is actually in leadership. Mm-hmm. I'm not meant to jump your hoops. I'm meant to put up my own hoops. Oh my God, imagine that. And then, right, so I figured that out. And then I realized that people give me tough feedback because they love me.
Do you ask
not because
for
they
it?
want to hurt me.
Do you ask for it?
Yeah, I ask for it all the time.
Point blank?
All the time. Mm-hmm. In fact, so this book we're going to talk about, I put the cover in this mastermind group I'm a part of. And 80% of the people are like, amazing, love it, whatever. And then within 2 minutes, I got 2 videos from 2 people I respect a lot, both who are like, Kelsey, that's not the cover.
Right.
That's not good. It's the action. In fact, the one guy said, I know you deliver messages hard. I'm going to land this for you. That cover is SHIT, and the title needs work. And I was like, all right, received. Love it. But
so you could have taken that and crumpled into a ball in the corner.
Yeah, no, but the reason they did that is because they know that I'm world class.
Right.
And they know that I'm capable of more, and they care for me and want to see me succeed.
Right.
You know, and here's the second thing I want to tell everyone who's listening is surround yourself with those people.
Yes.
Do not surround yourself with the critics who are there to criticize and are not even in the ring. To heck with them. They get the toe out the door, lock, double lock, triple lock, throw away the key. Because if you're surrounded by people who actually want to support you and be your cheerleader and have your back, when they give you feedback like that, it's powerful because you know they believe in you.
How can people find those people?
Here's a few things. Okay, so everyone who's listening to this has a reason to listen to this. Yeah? Mm-hmm. There are people who listen to you and believe in what you're doing and they like what you're doing, which means that there's a commonality there. Yes. Right? People that surround you have something in common. Find out who those people are. Like look on everybody go and review the podcast. Look at all the people who've reviewed the podcast. Like, look, it's pretty easy to find people. You can reverse Google them in like a second, find their Facebook page, whatever. Look at where they're all hanging out. Mm-hmm. Are they in a specific group or the whatever? So that's the online world way.
Yeah.
The real world way is to go out and do something that you want to do. And I'm not talking about necessarily networking events or whatever the case, but I like field hockey. I know there's going to be other field hockey players who are into that thing. I like fine art. I like live music shows. I like find your tribe of people around a commonality. It doesn't have to be business.
Right.
It helps if it is, but it doesn't always have to be. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is tough to say, but we all have the people who make like they're supporting us, yes. But really you walk away and they're like, that Kelsey Ramsden, she's just all that, whatever. Hot tip, if you're that person who's back talking other people, we eventually find out.
Yeah, karma, lady. Karma.
We find out. And those people they're not at my parties.
Yeah.
And they want to be invited and they're not.
Love it.
So I'd say, what's that?
Constructive feedback.
Yes.
Find your posse.
Totally.
What was the third thing?
Give your posse permission. Like you have to actually tell them, land it to me straight. Don't tell me I'm good. I already know that.
Don't fluff it.
Don't fluff it, And when you receive it with care and love. Mm-hmm. It's not that they think you're bad. And also, though, receive it with care and love, but remember you have your own mind, right? So if I'm feeling gold for the spine of my book cover and I send it to my peeps and my peeps are like, red, red, red.
I voted red.
You were red. And if you were gold, it's gold.
Good.
That's how it's going to print. But I wanted to see who says what. Is there something I'm missing? Is there something I'm not seeing here? Is there a reason why? Because sometimes it's good to question your own greatness. We can't get up on our horses and think we're just super badass all the time. But keep your North Star. Sometimes it's easy to get amongst these people and then get into the kind of this like spiral of, well, he said this, she said, I wonder. No one has your answers.
The feedback vortex, I call that.
That's it.
Then you can never make a step forward.
Totally. No one has your answers. They have answers. They have ideas and insights, but they don't have yours. And I think that that's the final piece is like, give them permission to give you the hard feedback, which turns out to be great feedback, but also receive it appropriately.
Right.
In measure,
I love that. So I'm intrigued by the title of your book, Success Hangover. I'm really excited to read it. The minute it's available on Amazon, I will be one of the first purchasers. And I will be shouting about it because I can't wait to read it. Have you ever had a success hangover?
Oh, yeah. This book was my own, cathartic experience of releasing. Here's what.
Give us the short notes on it.
I think books fall into a bunch of categories, yeah. Some books are written because the author feels like they wish they had that book when, right? I went to the store trying to find, and I wish that's me. So when I was named Canada's top female entrepreneur the first time, it was great and lovely. Felt not, after it happened, there was a little bit of a shady side of that hill. The second time, it was a lot worse. And so when that happened, I was on the cover of a bunch of magazines, getting all this press, all this was happening. And outwardly, the applause was, roaring applause. I'm amazing. Inside, it was probably one of the worst things that had ever happened to me because I didn't want any of that, actually. Once I had it, I realized I didn't.
The accolades?
I didn't at all. I didn't want other people to look to me for their answers. Okay. I didn't want to be, it was a bit like, how do you follow your own act when that happens? So now what? What's next? Mm-hmm. What's next? And it happens all the time. So it happened when I graduated my undergrad. I walked across the stage. There was no, what happened to the confetti and the big orgasm of accomplishment? It was like, okay, that's good. Now what? And then you do the next thing that you think is going to, and then, oh, well, it's good, but now what? And so it was really this, for me, that was the top of the top. And then I was like, right, now what? And I ultimately realized that all these things success in air quotes, all these things that I had kind of hitched my wagon to, I eventually got, look, everybody who's listening to this is a person with drive and ambition, or they wouldn't be showing up to improve themselves. So let's lay that straight. Mm-hmm. That means that you'll get the thing you want. You do enough work and you do all the things, and eventually you get there. Sometimes you get there and it's not all you thought it was, mm-hmm. or you want to do more and you don't know what to do. You sell your business and you think, well, now what? Now, like, where is my office? Whatever it is, we've all had it. I'm sure you're nodding, right? So you've had it.
I get you.
You did it.
I'm picking up what you're laying down.
Yeah, you are. And it's here's the thing, that the other part of the reason I wrote the book is because everybody talks about failure, and everybody's talking about how to make $1 million, and everybody's talking about all this stuff. And it's very taboo to be successful or have accomplished a thing and say, I'm still unhappy. Mm-hmm. Or I don't know what I want. Because everybody thinks once you're successful or you achieve the thing, that's the sunset moment. That's when the sky parts and
But that particular instance is success on their terms.
Well, this is it. And if it doesn't hit with you and land with you and stick with you, we can all get high. I mean, I get high on success all the time. Mm-hmm. But it's like you're chasing the dragon after. You can never get that feeling again until you do it again.
So what is success for you? Yeah.
So for me, I changed it all around. I'm sure you know I had cancer. I think that was all part of the story. So that's also like a really great opportunity to realize we're all mortal.
Yes.
This idea that like 300 years from now, maybe even 200, I'm like an insignificant speck of energy in the universe. Nothing matters. I matter infinitely to my children, yes, and not at all to any other given thing. Well, that's rationalizing. So success to me is actually a feeling. Mm-hmm. It's not an acquisition. It comes and it goes. You know, I had a great moment with my children that was successful. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm where I should be. I'm feeling what I should be feeling. It's not about, I just bought something new that's pretty interesting and material to me. And when I am near the thing, it makes me feel a certain way. It just so happened to cost a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But that feeling can come with things that do not cost a lot of money.
Right.
You know, that feeling can come with, oh my gosh, this amazing song is playing and I have my coffee and I have an exciting meeting today. Moving forward, doing it. So, I mean, in the book, I talk about how we can archetype these moments, which is really what got me out of my hangover. Because when I was in my so now what, which was long and terrible, to be candid, mm-hmm. I started to try and figure out, how do I come alive again? How am I going to feel alive again? Because I feel nothing or negative. And I did a ton of research, and I used my own experience, and I figured out do we have 5 minutes to do a quick little game?
Absolutely.
Are you cool with doing like a live weird thing?
Let's do it.
Dig it. Okay. I love your style. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Cool?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and you're not going to answer them out loud, and everyone who's listening can answer for themselves.
Okay.
Groovy? Mm-hmm. So the first question, I want you to think of something that you know really well. Got it? Mm-hmm. Cool. Now, I want you to think of something you remember. Something you remember.
Anything?
Yeah, anything. A memory, something you remember. Mm-hmm. Got it? Cool. So this is where I read everyone's mind. This is where the magic happens. So the thing you know really well, I'm willing to bet that it could be taught. Am I right or am I wrong?
100%.
Yeah, you could teach it. So correct, check mark, good, moving forward. The thing that you remember. Mm-hmm. Now, if your mind was a library, and you know how in the old days, like our era, you would go into a thing and library would actually have tags on books, like, mm-hmm. So imagine the book was categorized by these 3 things: Number one, it has an emotional tag to it. Love, lust, fear, hate, something. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Yes. Number two is it couldn't be repeated the exact same way twice.
Fair.
Fair. And the third thing is you either shared that with another human being by virtue of they did it with you, or you told someone like this eye to eye. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, nailed it. So 3 for 3. It's not because I'm reading like hundreds of thousands of minds. And I know you're looking at me like, now your lotto numbers. No. So the reason I know this is because our minds work in a very specific way. Mm-hmm. And our mental shelves are stocked in a very specific way. And I relate it to, it's like, if you're the best cake maker in the world, you have specific ingredients, yeah? And you use those ingredients all the time, and and you can stock higher quality vanilla and all these things. But eventually, if you want to change what you're making, you got to stock some new ingredients, because ain't nothing new coming out of the kitchen with no new ingredients, yeah? So this occurred to me, and I was like, what the hell? Oh my God, it's so obvious. I need to stock some new ingredients, but how do I make them stick? How do I make them sit in my mind in the right places so I'm pulling from the right shelves?
Right.
So I figured this out. I called it the 3E model. And there's a 4th E, which is the epiphany. And so when you have an event that has emotion, mm-hmm. an experience that can't be repeated twice, mm-hmm. an engagement in how you tell another person or experience with another person, mm-hmm. if you do that enough, the 3 E's, and you construct these opportunities, the 4th E will come, which is the epiphany. Because you have stocked your mental shelves in a way where you have all sorts of new ingredients. Look, Steve Jobs did not the iPhone didn't come out of outer space, right? He took a bunch of shit laying around, just like your mom's leftover soup, right? Stuff in the fridge. What do you got? You throw a bunch of things together and something new happens. The same will happen if you pioneer and engineer these situations for yourself. But here's what we do. The more successful we get, the less we do that. The less we engage in highly emotive things. The less we're exposed to new things. The fewer times we actually share what we think, feel, and do with other human beings. We become isolated near the top, mm-hmm. In air quotes, of our own little worlds. Yes. So the thing we want most to feel alive again and have epiphanies and new ideas and find the what's next, because that's what made us successful in the beginning. That's how we got here, was not doing it the same as everyone else. Mm-hmm. We lose that over time. And so we actually have to engineer it for ourselves. And so now everyone's listening going, okay, great. So how do I do it? Yeah. Give me actionable, tangible things. And so here's a couple simple things. First thing I would ask is, how do you get to work or school in the morning? Most people will say, I get there this way. And I will say, why do you get there this way? And they will say, it's the most expedient way. And I will say, does expediency matter?
Right.
And they will say, I guess. And I say, is there a more exciting way to work? Is there another way to work? Is there a way you can go that you've never been? Is there a way that might have a different coffee shop that you could stop and visit and not go through Tim's in the drive-thru, but actually get your ass out of your car, walk into the hipster guy with his toque and his beard and say, can I have a, who knows even what it is? I've never ordered it before. I might not like it. Risk. It's not crazy. It's not wild science. Try something a little bit different. That's going to take you approximately 7 to 8 minutes longer tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you, if you do that tomorrow, your day will be different.
Shake it up.
Shake it up. Go to an art opening. You don't even care about art. You don't even know anything about art. Go with all the arty hipsters. Stand there in front of a piece and tell someone what you think about it. Who cares what that person does or if they respond, whatever, call up your girlfriend and say, hey, do you want to go to see this whatever band? Or do you want to start up a 2-man book club and read the Zen of Sex? I don't know. Something random and different and not in your current realm of experience. I guarantee you things will change.
I love that. Kelsey, thank you so much for your time today. And for those of you listening, Success Hangover is going to be available at good old Amazon on October 30th, and some of us may get a sneak peek October 23rd. I will for sure send out those links when it's time, when it's ready. And just for being so truthful and the provocateur that you are, thank you so much for showing up today and sharing your journey. We really
Sheila, thanks for having me. And thanks to everyone listening.
That's the fun part. Kelsey, we wish you much success on your terms over the next little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Road to 7 podcast. Make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes so you don't miss an episode. To learn more, visit SheilaCummins.com for more support along your road to 7 figures and beyond in your business. See you next time.